Hello and welcome to another grammar lesson by Français Sans Soucis. Today we are diving into reflexive verbs, an essential part of French grammar. By the end of this lesson, you will understand how to form, use and place these verbs correctly in any context. As you work through this video lesson, feel free to use our Reflexive Verbs Practice Workbook to reinforce what you learn. It is linked below this video and you can download it from our website. It's packed with exercises designed to help you master these verbs. Reflexive verbs are used when the subject of the sentence performs an action on itself. Think of them as verbs that look in the mirror because the action reflects back to the subject. For example, je me lave translates to I wash myself in English, but it sounds much more natural in French. Identifying reflexive verbs. You can easily identify reflexive verbs by looking for reflexive pronouns like me, te, se, nous, vous, and ce. The first three, me, te, and ce, they're for the singular, and nous, vous, and ce are for the plural. These pronouns are placed directly before the verb they modify. And notice how the pronoun for the third person plural is the same as in the third person singular, ce. Let's practice this. Repeat after me. Me, te, se, nous, vous, and ce. Great. These pronouns are your clues that you're dealing with a reflexive verb. So how do we form reflexive verbs in the present tense? To form a reflexive verb in the present tense, place the correct reflexive pronoun before the verb and then conjugate the verb as you would normally based on the subject. For example, je me lave, where me is the reflexive pronoun and lave is the conjugated verb. Let's go through each form. Repeat after me. Je me lave. Tu te laves. Il, elle se lave. Nous nous lavons. Vous vous lavez. Il, elle se lave. Notice how the reflexive pronoun changes to match the subject. If you need more practice, our Reflexive Verbs Practice Workbook offers detailed exercises that guide you step by step. Use the link below this video to access the workbook. Using reflexive verbs in everyday contexts. Reflexive verbs are common in everyday French. Here are some examples. Try to repeat them after me, and I will also provide the translation for them. Je me réveille à 7 heures. And again, je me réveille à 7 heures. This translates to I wake up at 7 a.m. Il se couche tôt. And again, il se couche tôt. This phrase means they go to bed early. On to the next one. Nous nous levons avec le soleil. And again, nous nous levons avec le soleil. And what this means is we get up with the sun. And on to our last example. Elle s'habille toujours avec style. And one more time. Elle s'habille toujours avec style. This translates to she always dresses stylishly. As you can see, reflexive verbs can be used in lots of everyday situations, especially those that describe a person's routine. Now, obviously, like with every normal verb, we can also negate reflexive verbs. To negate a reflexive verb, simply wrap ne pas around the reflexive pronoun and the verb. It's important that ne comes before the reflexive pronoun and pas follows the verb. For example, je ne me lave pas means I don't wash myself. Try reading the following examples out loud with me to remember this sequence. Il ne se réveille pas. Nous ne nous levons pas avant 8 heures. This one was a bit complicated, so let's do it again. Nous ne nous levons pas avant 8 heures. Good job. Elle ne s'habille pas encore. The structure is consistent and no matter which subject you're using, so you can always rely on remembering that ne has to go before the reflexive pronoun and pas goes after the conjugated verb. And just like negation, there is also a use of reflexive verbs in the passé composé, which is the perfect past tense in French. When using reflexive verbs in the passé composé, the structure changes slightly. You need to use the auxiliary verb être instead of avoir. Remember that some verbs form their present tense with avoir, and actually most of them, and then there's a few that use être. All of the reflexive verbs fall into this category. Place the reflexive pronoun before être and then conjugate the past participle of the main verb. For example, je me suis lavé means I washed myself. If the subject is feminine or plural, make sure the past participle agrees in gender and number. Let's practice. Je me suis lavé for masculine. And then we have je me suis lavé with an extra E at the end to mark the feminine. Notice how you cannot hear the difference between them. These are only for spelling. Je me suis lavé and je me suis lavé sound exactly the same, but still one of them is for masculine and the other one is for feminine. This is called agreement, and we will now have a closer look at how it works with reflexive verbs. Agreement in the passé composé. Here's an important rule. In the passé composé, the past participle must agree in gender and number with the subject if the reflexive pronoun is a direct object. For example, elle s'est blessée. She hurt herself. With blessée agreeing with elle. So elle, her, or she is the direct object here, which is why the participle agrees with the feminine. But if the reflexive pronoun is an indirect object, like in ils se sont lavés les mains, they washed their hands, there is no agreement with laver. This is a crucial distinction. So let's say both examples together. Elle s'est blessée, ils se sont lavés les mains. Now, in the second example, the direct object is not il, but it is les mains. No, the other way around, sorry. Il is the direct object, but what they have washed is not themselves, but their hands. So therefore, the se laver reflexive verb actually belongs to les mains. So il is an indirect object, which is why the participle does not agree with it. Okay, so that was a bit complicated, but don't worry. We have a full study guide on the passé composé, which can help you with that. It is linked in the description down below, and it contains all of this complicated information and some more. Now we're going to look at reflexive verbs in the futur proche, which is the future tense. In the futur proche, or near future tense, reflexive verbs follow a simple pattern. Start with the verb aller, conjugated in the present tense, then place the reflexive pronoun between aller and the infinitive from the verb. For example, je vais me coucher bientôt means I'm going to bed soon. Let's practice together. Repeat after me. Je vais me coucher. Tu vas te réveiller. Notice how the reflexive pronoun always stays directly before the infinitive verb. So, how to practice and apply this? The best way to get comfortable with reflexive verbs is through practice. Write sentences that describe your daily routine, like chaque matin, je me réveille, je me lève et je me brosse les dents. So every morning I wake up, I get out of bed and I brush my teeth. Or avant de sortir, elle se maquille et s'habille élégamment. Now, what this means is before going out, she puts on some makeup and dresses elegantly. The more you practice, the more natural these verbs will feel. And if you want more structured exercises, be sure to check out our Reflexive Verbs Practice Workbook for a variety of examples and drills. And last but not least, a few tips for mastering reflexive verbs. Review reflexive verbs daily. Use them in sentences about your routines, like the examples before. And explore our Reflexive Verbs Practice Workbook for a lot of exercises to help you understand reflexive verbs better. That concludes our in-depth lesson on reflexive verbs. Well done if you've followed all the way through here. Remember, the key to mastering them is consistent practice. With dedication and repetition, reflexive verbs will become a natural part of your French. Keep up the great work and good luck on your French learning journey. À bientôt!